You know, when I look around at all the entrepreneurs who are grinding it out, spending 70 to 80 hours per week growing their business, you have to ask yourself the question, at what cost? Hi, my name's Tim Uchuk, and in this podcast, we're going to be exploring the tools, tactics, and strategies for crushing it and scaling your business without making the ultimate sacrifice of your time and freedom. Hey, what's up everyone? Tim Uchuk here. It is a beautiful Friday afternoon at the time of this recording, and I'm on my way home to see the kiddos. We're going to go for a walk in the woods, I think, which is, we'll do that without the electronics, spend some time with the kiddos, and then we'll make some dinner, and there might even be some red wine involved. We'll see. So in this episode, since I've got some time, I'm just heading home. I thought I would just share some coaching that I did within our company, and this might be useful, and you've probably run into this a number of times, and so I'm hoping this is useful for you anyways, and you might be able to relate in terms of some of the stuff that you're working on. So just to lay the scene for you so that you can understand what I'm talking about and why this stuff is important. For those of you that have been following along, we're launching a van racking business. It's a product line in Germany, extremely successful over in Europe, and we're looking to replicate that here. And the van racking is for, plumbers, electricians, organizational systems for the back of the van for their tools and parts, all that kind of stuff. And so you can imagine, in the midst of that, plus, the other businesses, truck body manufacturing, and there's compressor business, and in the midst of that, to launch a business in and of itself it's a huge undertaking. If you can imagine, nobody in the market, for the most part, knows the product, so we have to create awareness, generate awareness. We have to generate interest and demand and convert, prospects into buyers. While at the same time, we have to order in the inventory. We have to set up logistics. We have to set up and train installers, people who can install this stuff across the country. There's a lot of moving parts, a lot of moving pieces. And so if there was one thing that really, at the end of the week, I love to take a look back, like today's Friday, I love to look back on the end of the week and say, man, we actually moved the needle this week. We took advantage of all the minutes and hours this week, and we moved the needle. We made some awesome progress. I love being able to look back and say that each week. And so there's the context, and here is the coaching and what we were talking about. So within our marketing, we are working on several things right now. We're launching Facebook ads, we're running awareness campaigns, all that kind of stuff. And one of the small projects we're working on is SEO, search engine optimization, which is we've got a team overseas that's helping us to get good listings and rankings on Google. And here's the coaching. So we were talking about, within our marketing department, I didn't see it until this morning, a task for the week. We've got, tasks that we want to get done for the week. And it was written, this is how it was described. It was collaborate on the metrics for holding the SEO team accountable. So in other words, how are we tracking to see that they're actually moving the needle for us? And so again, the title was to collaborate on the KPIs, on the metrics. And here's the coaching. So if you think about all the things that you're working on, either yourself or your team, if you have a half-built bridge, meaning that the cars can't yet cross the bridge or the airplane's not off the runway, then you've invested time, energy, and effort, and you've got nothing to show for it. So what I mean by that is if you have a task, if your objective for the week is to talk about metrics or KPIs, and at the end of the week, what are you going to say? We talked about them? There's no value there. The value there is if we want to get them to be reporting each week, is to figure out what the metrics are and to set up the dashboard where they're going to be reporting it, and to launch it and get it going, get it done. So at the end of the week, we can say it's done. We don't want to talk about it. We want to actually get the value out of that so we can say this thing's one and done and on to the next. Now, here's where most people get hung up is that, and this is likely the case here, is that trying to do too much at once. So that's your work in process. If your work in process is too high, meaning you're working on too many things at once, you're going to have too many half-built bridges, meaning that you've invested so much energy, time, resources, money, all that stuff, and you have nothing to show for it. You have nothing to show for it. So this is a productivity pattern that I'm sharing with you, is that keep your work in process to a minimum so that you can actually close loops and complete stuff and have something to show for it. And your productivity, just by doing that, is going to improve immensely. And so the feedback that we were chatting about was one item. And the other thing was, let's get really specific in terms of, if we're meeting at the end of the week looking back, what have we accomplished? We don't want to talk about a metric. I mean, that's like a 10-second conversation. We want to have something to show for it, which is, okay, we've made a decision. We're not just talking about it. We've actually made a decision, and we've built, and we already have this stuff in place. So it's literally takes 2 minutes to do. We've launched it, we've set it up, and we've trained them, and we're off to the races on Monday. That's getting the airplane off the runway. Okay, so there's example number one. And the takeaway there is minimize your work in process. And when you're coaching your team or you're coaching yourself, minimize your work in process so that you can focus on closing loops. The second piece there is that when you're writing down and documenting stuff that you want to get done by the end of the week, be specific, use an action word, and be mindful of what is the value that we're creating here. What is the artifact that we can look back at the end of the week and say, we have created something that is valuable. In other words, we move the needle. If you don't do that, then the needle, it's a Friday, you can tell. The needle has not been moved, and it's you've got a half-built bridge, which means those are the kinds of weeks where you're like, what did we get done this week? We're just like spread a mile wide. Everything's diluted. Not good. So there's two bits of advice. And then another example was in our IT department. There's another, we're big on measuring stuff, right? And we're measuring one specific area where we're wanting to improve compliance around filling out these forms. And the compliance is, we want it to be like 100%. Like Boeing, or like in the hospitals, you want your doctors, I hope, to wash their hands with soap 100% of the time. And we take it with the same level of seriousness. And I know I sound like I'm not super fun to work for, but we do have fun at the same time. So anyways, a lot of time was spent building a report on this task that we could measure the compliance with this particular area. And the thinking from the team members was that by setting up the report and getting it mailed to the team, so an email goes out every week to the team in terms of the report, that it's done. Our job is done. And my point here is that just by creating a report to give you information on something doesn't change anything. It's a complete waste of time unless you take the data and you do something with it. So again, we've spent time building a report, and great, the email goes out to people, but what are we doing with the data? And is it actionable, and is it driving the right decisions? That is getting the airplane off the runway. And that's the value, is compliance is down. We want to get compliance up. Let's find out on a regular basis where we're at, and let's put actions into place to course correct and drive it back to where it needs to be. So anyways, this is this is a bit of a rant podcast, but I think it's really important for you in terms of your team, in terms of getting compliance, in terms of getting everybody, and this is really useful for your team as well, by the way, to I always think, getting people to think for themselves is, if your team can think in terms of what is a half-built bridge, that concept that we're talking about, and open loops and understanding what is the value that we're creating here or looking to create, what is done look like? Sometimes we use the term, what is done? So sometimes we get things done and they're not done, meaning that we haven't closed the loop. So anyways, those are a couple analogies, and this is the type of coaching that I do, with our team and with our clients all the time. And really, we're teaching you how to think at a different level, and it's not stuff that comes naturally as well. But when you're under the gun and you're trying to create, a big future, and you're trying to accomplish big things, you have to think this way. It's like if you got a sports team and you want to make it to the championships, if you don't take this stuff seriously and you just kind of going through the motions, you don't stand a chance in the long run. So it's a bit of a rant, but I think it's a useful one in terms of looking at how you're spending your time, how your team's spending their time, and if you help to teach people how to, and coach them how to think about their thinking, and how to make decisions in your absence in this way, I think it's going to be helpful in the long run. And ultimately, our role, I think, as leaders is to grow future leaders, right? So we're watering the plants for our team so that they can eventually, move up and grow and think at a different level. And that's what it's all about at the end of the day. So anyways, hope that's helpful. I'm just pulling up at home. We're going to go for a walk in the woods, and hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day. And I will talk to you soon. Hey, Tim Uchuk here, and real quick, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, if you could take a couple quick seconds to give it a rating, it would be very much appreciated. And secondly, if you're looking for more tools and strategies on how you can crush it in life and business, just head on over to bookwithtim.com, where I've put together a free case study which shows you how to unlock unprecedented freedom today by using the 2 power levers. Just head on over to bookwithtim.com. Until next time, wishing you success and freedom in your business. Cheers.